am Richard Dorsey, the CEO of Island Analytics and Marketing, a U.S. Virgin Islands-based data solutions, customer experience, and marketing support company. I am joined here on this podcast with our wonderful co-host, Roger Nicholas. He's the Customer Experience Director for Island Analytics and Marketing, IAM for short. And on this awesome podcast, we have the wonderful, the powerful, the super powered Sandra Glasgow, founder and managing director of BizTactics Limited. And what we always do is make sure we give our guests their moment to shine. Miss Sandra Glasgow has a few passions, high among them startups, scale-ups, and angel investing, as well as business incubation and corporate governance. She is a co-founder of Jamaica's first angel investor network, FirstAngelsJA. I'm pretty sure she's answered some prayers. In 2020, she was named as senator representing Jamaica at the World Business Angels Investment Forum. And in 2022, she was elected as a director for the Latin American Trade Association for Business Angels. She's also a co-founder and managing director of RevUP Caribbean Limited, a virtual business incubator, as well as managing director of BizTactics Limited, her own consulting company, which is dedicated to mentoring growth aspiring firms and promoting best-in-class corporate governance in the Caribbean. She is also a certified trainer by the World Bank, International Finance Corporation, Global Corporate Governance Forum, as a master trainer in corporate governance, board leadership, and by the Inter-American Investment Corporation, International Trade Administration, U.S. Department of Commerce, as a trainer in business ethics for SMEs. She has spent at least 5.5 years as the CEO of the private sector organization of Jamaica, and before that 20 years at the University of Technology Jamaica, where she founded the Technology Innovation Center, Jamaica's first state-of-the-art technology-based incubator. We welcome superpowered Sandra Glasgow to our IAM CX podcast. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Richard, and hello, Roger.
Hey.
Thanks for inviting me.
This is for our audience, ladies and gentlemen, and we introduce you to Sandra Glasgow, heavy hitter.
So as we start, we're going to ask just briefly, tell us about your career journey. What encouraged you to get into angel investing? What gaps did you identify with starting RevUp, and a little bit about what RevUp is?
Okay. So, my journey started when I joined the staff of the College of Art, Science and Technology, CAST, as it was then. It's now the University of Technology, Jamaica. That was in 1987. And I was hired to execute a project which was funded by the Canadians to establish an entrepreneurial center on the campus that was meant to introduce entrepreneurship education in the curriculum for all the students at CAST. When I was hired, though, my vision differed somewhat from that of the leadership, in that I really felt that an entrepreneurial center ought to be entrepreneurial. And really their vision was that this center would just, deliver this course to students. So within weeks of joining the center, we started offering the same course that the students were doing in the evenings to small business people and charging them a small fee. It was a 36-hour course, 2 evenings a week for 3 hours each evening. And in no time, we were adding courses. We started off with how to start a small business in Jamaica and succeed. We added courses in marketing and accounting and, how to build a consulting business, all kinds of courses. And we were making profits for the center. So to cut a long story short, in 1999, because I joined in 1987, so, about 12 years later, I was selected to participate in a global fellowship program, a competitive program, which was offered by the Eisenhower Fellowships, which is named after President Dwight D. Eisenhower and is headquartered in Philadelphia, in the US. And so in March 2000, I set off to the US to spend the next 8 weeks of my fellowship visiting business incubators and meeting with angel investors. Those were the two areas that I wanted to explore. By this time, CAST had become new tech. and the Entrepreneurial Center had evolved into the TIC. We had secured financing from CDB and a grant from the Canadians to build the state-of-the-art business incubator. And we actually opened it formally in 2002 with Michael Leachin as our guest speaker. In fact, a few months before, I think a month before we actually had the opening, we had a visit from the late His Excellency, Prince Philip. So while I was at the TIC, I tried to start an angel network, which we call TIC, which is TIC Angel Investor Network. But frankly, the economy wasn't in a good shape at the time, and the network didn't get off the ground. So fast forward to 2014, I had by this time left UTech and had left PSOJ as its CEO and started my own consulting business. My chairman, Joseph Matalon, we call him Little Joe, and I were among a group of private sector players who were invited by the World Bank to a meeting to discuss the idea of starting an angel investor network in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And they offered to send us on a study tour. But, I said to Joe, listen, I've been there, done that. I already spent 8 weeks learning about these things. So I really just dusted off a guidebook that I had got from the Kaufman Foundation. That's when I was trying to start TIC in 2004. And we just got started. Joe invited a bunch of his business colleagues to lunch. I made a presentation, and we signed up our first 10 angel members that day. And today we have 26 members in our angel network. And those angels have invested almost $3 million US. We've done 22 deals in 12 companies. So RevUP came about because we saw that there were some serious gaps in the knowledge that our portfolio company founders had. This is now in 2021, 7 years after we started First Angels. And we recognized that these gaps were affecting the ability of these companies to grow and scale. So we decided that we would design a comprehensive 5-month incubation program to close those gaps. We had originally wanted to do a bricks and mortar facility, but then COVID came along, and so we pivoted to a virtual program. And so here we are today with RevUP.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
that's the short story.
that's the short story. See, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, heaviest of hitters for you and only you, okay, at the IAM CX. Well, Sandra, my question is leaning on the side of your angel investment lens, because an angel investor or business investor has a different way of looking at things. There are different things that are important to them or that are key to them making a decision of whether to invest or not invest. Could you share with our audience some of those things that are important for someone looking to invest in a business that wants to scale?
Right. So, as angel investors, we recognize that a lot of small business founders think that getting financing is going to be a panacea for all the issues that they face, in growing their businesses. And in truth, and the research has borne this out, businesses fail or fail to optimize their potential because of a whole lot of reasons.
Right.
Very often inadequate focus on their customers, perhaps the wrong approach to marketing. They're not keeping records. They're not, they're not creating financial statements. They're not managing their risks well. They're not managing their people well. And there are a host of other practices that are suboptimal. So, as angel investors, when we invested in the early crop of businesses, what what we saw were people who were very good at building something, you know,
Yeah. Yes.
Growing cocoa and making fine chocolates,
Right.
or building an app, right?
Mhm.
But when they make good pitches,
Mm.
you know, it all sounds great. But when you make the investment, then you realize where they have these gaps, right?
Mm.
So RevUp is actually coming out of the experience of First Angels. Our chairman for RevUp is Joe, who is chairman
Okay.
for First Angels.
Okay.
We have angel net investors on our board. We have founders on our board. So we realized that if we were going to continue, and we're the first and the only functioning angel investor network in Jamaica, frankly, in the region. And that if we were going to sustain this network, if we were going to be able to get high net worth individuals to invest in startups, which is hugely risky, right?
Yeah. Yes.
If we were going to be able to sustain all those things, then we needed to do something. And I just want to say that the people in our network are not in it to make a lot of money. They realize the risks, right? But they are really interested in developing the economies of the Caribbean.
Yes.
They're really interested. They really feel very strongly that the key to developing these economies is to have more businesses starting and being sustained over time, right?
Yes.
So when we came together and designed this incubation program, we wanted it to address the real gaps in the business knowledge and practices that we found that our founders were experiencing. So, the design of the program includes things like psychometric tests. I mean, I know my angels will often say, oh, if something goes wrong, well, who is this person that we're in a long-term relationship with? Sometimes we didn't really know, right?
Yeah.
So we are now doing psychometric testing. We're using the extended disc. I don't know if you have ever used that tool.
Yes,
it's great.
I have. Excellent.
So founders understand themselves, who they are, and how to style shift when they're dealing with, all the stakeholders, their team members, their boards, their customers, and so on. We provide templates, and we coach the founders to develop high-level strategic plans.
Okay.
They get 70 hours of very practical management training, which is delivered by entrepreneurs, not academics, right?
That's right.
Entrepreneurs are expert professionals. They get 20 hours of marketing, 10 hours of finance and accounting, 5 hours of tax laws and compliance, 10 hours of people management, 5 hours of corporate governance, 2.5 hours of ESG, 7.5 hours of strategy growth and scaling. They also get 10 hours of mentorship from local and international mentors. We have a partnership with the World Business Angels Investment Forum. They get 10 hours of investment readiness training. And to cap it off, they get to attend an in-person weekend retreat that's facilitated by McKinsey & Company on how to be a great CEO. So, I mean, it's great value. They only pay $350 for now because we're able to subsidize it with funding from our sponsors. But, our founders tell us, and the people who have gone through the program tell us that they marvel really at the value that they receive. And it's actually more like, 10x the value that they're getting. So these are the things that angels, our experience has told us. We have to kind of fix what's happening in the ecosystem. And that's how RevUp came about.
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing.
Academy in terms of business and startup. Sorry, Roger, go ahead.
No, I was just marveling at how comprehensive what started out as let's be a part of the solution and not the problem evolved into being a further part of the solution by educating those who are aspiring to be business owners or looking to scale their current business and providing such a comprehensive training experience supported by large organizations like a McKinsey and NCD and
IDB Lab, which has given us a 3-year grant, and the Development Bank of Jamaica. So we have a lot of we have partners who are really invested in developing the ecosystem for startups.
And it sounds like it's not just about return on investment or return on equity. You know, that's great. One of the things I wanted to highlight from some research out there, that Net Promoter Score, I'm sure you've heard of, has become a very popular metric used by investors to help them determine rather, if this organization is in position to grow, if it understands its customers properly, if it understands the needs of its employees properly, and if they're willing to offer a strategy. So let me kind of share a couple of those stats. According to the London School of Business in 2005, a 7-point increase in Net Promoter Score averages out to about a 1% in revenue growth annually, all right? And then some 2006 research shows that CX or customer experience-led companies gave investors 1,026% growth on their investment or return on their investment over a 10-year period, versus, say, the S&P 500 in the US, which only gave 122%, which is still an astounding amount of return in a 10 year.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So it begs the question, it points to the fact that a company that's leaning on customer experience strategy offers, there's no guarantees, but it improves the potential for them to increase an investor's return on investment, and increase and scale their business. And I thought that was necessary to share.
That's great data. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, Roger, that ties in with the question I had for Sandra. You said one of the main issues you notice in your startups is that they didn't understand the market, meaning that they didn't understand their customers and some of their habits. You know, like Roger said, customer experience has been around for about 20 years, educating and teaching and about studying the consumer. How significant is it, in your opinion, for small businesses especially to understand the psychology of the customer and how it affects their sales, their customer churn, their customer loyalty?
Oh, it's very significant. The truth is that there's a lot for these founders to learn, but we do spend a great deal of time in our marketing modules. I mentioned earlier we spend 20 hours on marketing, right? And we spend a lot of time to address the whole business of customer psychology. And we actually have a module which is called Customer Psychology and the Buying Process. So, we go into some depth and we do practical exercises with the founders to help them understand who their target audience is, because sometimes people are just out there selling to anybody, right? We have them to
necessarily be the best customer either. That's the thing.
Right. So we have them to determine, the different buyer types and the buying behaviors of those buyer types, and then we help them to build their ICP, their ideal customer profile, right? We talk about the psychology of buyers. We help them to create buyer personas. So they actually create avatars and, really dig deep into who their buyer is. And also we touch on how data, the role that data plays in helping their companies to increase their number of customers and the experience that customers have, and therefore to scale. We have
Sandra, do you sorry to
yes,
cut you off? Do you mind
yeah,
repeating for us, please? Because we want that to marinate for our audience, those who are so
yes,
to let you know, our audience is very varied. It started out mostly Caribbean, lots of corporate,
yes,
lots of small business, but now we have Africa, Middle East, Asia, US, and UK.
yes,
So I want you to say that again about the data, because that's lost a
yes.
lot, especially in the Caribbean.
No, and it's a big problem. And it is something that we want to um delve into in more detail. We have plans for some follow-up things. I can talk about that later. But really, we try to encourage them to capture the data that's going to help them to better understand their customers, get more new customers, retain their customers, and therefore, if they do that well, their company is going to grow, right?
That's correct.
So, that data can also help them to develop targeting campaigns. I tell you, when I see some of the SMEs, they think going on Instagram is just enough, right?
Yeah.
They need to have marketing campaigns that are targeted to their ideal customers.
Yes.
We talk about how they should segment their market and how to create multiple opportunities to reach their ideal customer. So we spend quite a bit. I mean, the person who delivers our marketing module is one of our angel investors, Sharon Roper, who runs a company called Shawn Associates, which is, she's a marketer par excellence. So, we don't talk about customers just in this module, but throughout the program. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because customers are kind of the universe. They're kind of the center of the universe for a business,
Well, of course, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business.
Exactly. And you kind of answered or began answering one of the questions I was actually going to follow up with regard to identifying ICPs or ideal customer profiles and attracting or acquiring new customers,
right,
or maintaining and keeping current existing customers. Do you think, or do you think that new businesses or businesses that are in your incubator program should be focused on one or the other, acquiring or keeping, or both?
Okay. And I said it earlier, that a lot of the founders are just good at creating their product. I mean, I can tell you lots of stories about them. But really, if you are, when we invest, listen, everybody who comes to pitch for an investment has, very optimistic goals in their pitch, right?
Yes.
And they tell you how much revenue they're going to make, and they always will have cash, and it's going to be profitable after year 2.
Yes.
I tell people in RevUP, that's one of the things I think founders need to learn about, really making realistic projections. Because when you come and promise an investor that you're going to do this, unless you are, excellent at acquiring and keeping your customers, you are not going to generate that revenue that you targeted. You're not going to generate the cash that you need and the profits that the business needs, so that eventually you can create an exit for the angel investors. So, it's not one or the other, it's both. They have to get their marketing right. So we spend a lot of time on marketing. As I said earlier, it's the biggest time investment in the program. They have to, get the marketing mix right for their particular business. They have to structure their budgets right, know when to spend what. They need to know how to measure the effectiveness of their marketing efforts. And, I don't think, people think about that. They're sometimes wasting money because they're not really measuring the effectiveness of their efforts.
Yeah, so that's and I think that leads into another issue. Why is it that you see that the culture of business, especially small businesses, are kind of averse to doing the due diligence, doing the hard work, doing the homework rather? We kind of wanted to know, why is it that they're averse to collecting data and doing these things? What do you see in the culture of the Caribbean business community that makes it so hard for new businesses to start up the right way? Is there old practices that are still a part of the culture, or you're dealing with locked economies, so you kind of really don't have to fight for fish that's already going to be in the barrel? Your thoughts?
Well, I think there are a number of, there are some structural issues in our economy, but I think at the heart of it, Richard, is that, well, I won't speak for the whole Caribbean, but in Jamaica, we like to do a thing, right? Without really having without being prepared for it. I'll tell you a bit of my own story. My first degree is in marine biology and applied botany. My first job was running a business that my father had just bought because he wanted me to come and join him in the business. I had no idea about business because in high school, the bright girls did sciences or, economics. The dunce girls did business. That was the culture. That was what.
Lord have mercy. She said dunce.
That's how it went, right? You forget that we went through an era where people in business were vilified, right?
Okay.
Right.
As rapacious capitalists. So it's something we haven't got over. I don't think, if you look in the US, for example, kids in grade school, in elementary school, are learning about entrepreneurship. Their parents are encouraging them to, do the paper route or sell lemonade or whatever. I tell you, I have a daughter who, she was about 6. We had a lime tree, a prolific lime tree, and she would pick up these limes and she says, "Mommy, I want to sell these limes because I want to save money." So I said, "Sure, honey." And I bought her the plastic bags and I sat her down at the gate and she was peddling these limes, right? And my husband said, "What are you doing? Turning this child into a higgler?" I said, no, I'm teaching her because she's writing receipts and it so happens, she wanted to donate her money to things. And my daughter is very entrepreneurial. So we don't have this in certain ethnic groups in our society, the Chinese, the Indians, the whites, who have generational wealth coming out of running businesses. The children, very often, learn about these things at the dinner table. Frankly, Black people aren't doing that enough. They're not. The people selling in the market, even though, it's maybe subsistence thing, obviously their children are not going to go into that. You know what I mean? So we don't have that cultural bent, especially in some parts of our population, the majority, I would say, to be in entrepreneurship. It's a very recent thing. So we have a situation where, and thankfully, I'm very, very encouraged that so many young people want to start businesses, but they're starting without the foundation.
Yes.
They don't have the foundation. And so there's a lot of catching up to do. A lot of catching up. And I think those are things we have to fix. We have to get entrepreneurship in our education system. We have to not see it as a bad thing. We're not, not see creating wealth as a bad thing. There's a guy who we had, Kadeen Mears, CEO of a company called Dollar Financial, which is listed on the stock exchange. We had him as our guest at our last retreat. Kadeen's story is so compelling. I want to have him on my podcast because he really started when his grandmother sold in the market. And he recognized that there was a demand for plastic bags. And so he bought these plastic bags in these, we call them scandal bags. They're banned now. He bought these in bulk. And he was then selling his grandmother, selling them to his grandmother and other sellers in the market. And so their customers would buy from them. And of course, he was making a profit. He went on to do what you call it? Oh gosh, lending people microcredits. Yes. He has a big company now listed on the Junior Stock Exchange, right? That story is because he had that entrepreneurial bent. His grandmother sold in the market, but maybe he was encouraged. His grandmother obviously encouraged it, and his parents probably did. And today he's a successful because it's in his DNA, right? And he prepared himself to build a successful business. So I think that's what we have to fix. There are other things in the market, and I think those the players in the ecosystem are trying to address that. They have to give kudos to the Development Bank of Jamaica. They're doing a fantastic job, seeding VC funds, helping incubators, and accelerators, supporting startups and scale-ups. They have grants and they have all kinds of programs to help all the players in the ecosystem create a better ecosystem for entrepreneurship.
Thank you. I know we kind of tangent a little bit, Raja. I think it's important for our audience to understand that even though customer experience and all the business analytics are shiny, amazing tools, it's touching on what you said, it's the heart of the passion for business and the challenge that you're willing to take on, and not just thinking there's an automatic solution for every problem. And it really cuts to the bone when you realize you're against the rock on the hard place. But up an individual such as yourselves, I definitely thank you for being able to help them out of those hard and sticky situations and see where they need to keep moving on. Raja, you have something?
No, I continue to be in awe, as I expected to be, because this is Sandra Glasgow, the Sandra Glasgow. But there's some key pillars of customer experience strategy, Sandra, that I'm sure you can appreciate, that focuses on understanding the journey of the customer that they take with your business, and then how that affects customer spending behavior, because you mentioned those are parts of the modules at the Caribbean. And then how those things affect internal business processes. That may be who you hire, or how they're trained, or which processes are streamlined and need more investment, and which processes are removed because they're not adding value or costing too much. So it affects business resources as well. What strategic capabilities do you typically find are the top 2 or 3 that, not so much new businesses, because they're pretty naive to most things sometimes, but those businesses who are at that point wanting to scale and they've come to your program at RevUP looking to scale, what are some of the strategic capabilities you find that they lack in that phase?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, one of the things I find is that, we talk about data analytics. I find this is probably the area where they're sort of making decisions without having the data to support those decisions.
Yes.
And very often are unwilling to make the investments in gathering the data and analyzing the data. And I think often too, they don't have, they neither have the tools nor the people who can support them on this journey.
Right.
So, I one of the things we do at RevUP is we have a partner program where we enlist partners who can provide support
and mentorship
to the founders. Yes. Not just mentorship, but actually providing services, So
okay.
We have mentorship is important too, but sometimes they need somebody to do the work, to help them do the work.
Yes.
So what we do is we have people who, we have service providers who can do all kinds of things, accountants and auditors and marketing people and HR people who can provide them with services at an affordable cost, right? So we have what we call our Partners and Perks program, where we say to our partners, listen, if you come on board with us, we have a growing number of people. We have 80 alumni right now, right?
Okay.
So there are 80 potential companies that you can offer a service to. And if you give them a 20% discount on your fees, and if you can grow with them over time, then this is going to provide you with good return on your investment.
Absolutely.
In the form of the discount. So we are trying to create all kinds of opportunities where we're now working, for example, on developing an online platform where all the people in our alumni group can let us know what they need. Because the RevUP program is 5 months. What happens after that? What sort of support do they need? So I would love to talk with you guys about becoming one of our, part of our partner network.
This could mean a trip to Jamaica, Richard. It could mean a trip to Jamaica.
Listen, we're going.
Where are you, Roger? Where are you both? You're in St. Croix.
We're headquartered in Christiansted, St. Croix.
Okay, in St. Croix.
I am based in Florida.
Okay,
so
you're based.
One flight away from Kingston. You just say
yes. So I'm actually going to Barbados and Trinidad next week.
Okay.
To promote RevUP. Because our program is really designed for founders throughout the Caribbean.
Yes.
And so, and if I might, one of the things that we also just talking about partnership, we want to expand angel investing in the Caribbean.
Yes.
So part of my mission when I go to Barbados and Trinidad is to promote the idea of people becoming part of the First Angels group. It's much easier to do that than to try to build an angel network from scratch in your country.
Yes.
Because if we are reaching out to founders throughout the Caribbean, we want to have people on the ground who can also invest in them, right?
Yes.
So we're actually running a series of webinars starting on July 27th on angel investing in the Caribbean. We're looking for potential angel investors who want to learn more. We're going to be, our presenter is going to be very experienced angel investor from Canada, Peter Dorsman, whom we've worked with for many years. And we'll also have input from members of our advisory committee, a member, Tommy Davis, who is in Africa, Israel Pons, who is in Mexico, and some of our local angels. So anybody who wants to know more can go to angels.revupcaribbean.com to learn more about it.
Beautiful, beautiful, timely plug.
Yes.
Did that like Michael Holden with a bouncer back in the day. Well pleased, bouncer.
Yes.
Nice. I am truly in awe, and for good reasons, because the passions that I identified with you months ago when we first started chatting was about saving the Caribbean, and not that we are saviors or supermen or superwomen, but in the sense of we have so much value that
Absolutely.
goes missed because of knowledge, lack of knowledge, or lack of strategy, or lack of support. And so this is the type of platform that our Caribbean people need to be exposed to, that allows them to know, hey, I may have a dream, I may have a vision, but I also have the support and a network of possible investors who will help my dream come true. And that says everything to me. I applaud your efforts and everything you've been doing. Thank you so much. Anything else exciting that, well, I know you're doing like 17 things that are exciting. So you want to highlight?
Well, my focus now is on getting more people, more founders from the Caribbean involved in RevUp, and getting the angel network strengthened with more angel investors. And let me just say that angel investors don't only provide money. In fact, it's probably the least thing that they do. They sit on your board, they are mentors, they are coaches, they are advisors. They open their contact lists and connect you with people in the marketplace. That's why we're called angels, Roger. Right? So, so that's really my focus now. And I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to chat with you and Richard this morning and share the work that we're doing here.
Oh, we thank you a lot. I must say, when you started to talk about businesses not being brave enough to seek partnerships and pay for services, that definitely kind of hit my heart, because we've been advocating for data and what data can do for companies in the Caribbean for about 6 or 7 years now. And it's amazing to see that you have seasoned business professionals who never thought that data, customer experience, customer analytics could be a viable solution, not just to fix a problem, but to grow and scale in and out of the Caribbean. So you took me off my choir sheet, and I just sat back in the pew and said thank you for it.
So let's be partners. Let's be partners on this journey.
Definitely.
Well, amen. We love that. I my paws are raised. I'm actually out of words, Richard, so that doesn't happen often. So I'll let you do about this time. No, but thank you again so much, Sandra Glasgow. We appreciate you. We thank God for you. We would love to talk offline about how we can be helpful or add value to your efforts, because we believe in the same things. Ladies and gentlemen, the lady of the day, Sandra Glasgow, thank you so much for joining us on the IAM CX podcast. And next podcast, we will have a customer experience strategist out of South Africa, one of the leading customer experience strategists out of South Africa, who's going to spend a lot of time talking about small business development, as well as understanding customers and the power of the customer journey, understanding the customer journey. So don't want to miss that. Thanks again for tuning in. My leader and fearless warrior CEO, Richard Dorsey, I thank you for this opportunity. I'm Roger Nicholas, Director of Customer Experience at Island Analytics and Marketing, and we look forward to seeing you next time. God bless and have a great day.
Bye-bye.